Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today I got an extra day off, and it's cold and nasty outside still, so I thought this morning I would put together the first video of the series, San Juan Islands 101. The first video is all about tools that's important for you to use and have if you're planning a trip to the San Juan Islands. So spent the morning penciling out some of the most important tools, in my opinion, that you can use to come up here. So sit back, pour yourself a beverage, and get ready. We'll do video 1, tools. Thanks for stopping by. Hi, welcome to the channel. I've penciled out the first video of the series on Washington State ferries, Anacortes to the San Juan Islands 101. The first video of the series is going to be about tools that you can use on your visit to the islands. I work a full 40-hour week at the Anacortes Ferry, and my hours are all over the place because I'm still on call, so I fill in for others that are out. So generally the 2 days a week I get off, I almost absolutely have to rest one day. A lot of my shifts are out in the weather. The Anacortes terminal is exposed to the wind and weather. And the open straits. So I generally take a day to recuperate, and that gives me about 1 day to try and format some videos and edit them. Sometimes I get a call in the middle of my second day saying you need to be at work at 4 a.m. tomorrow morning, so that means I have to go to bed at about 6 or 7 and get up about 2 or 2:30 in the morning. So that can sometimes waste the majority of my second day off. Today we're going to start video 1, tools that you can use. There's probably more tools available than I have listed here, but these are some of the most important ones to have. Of course, a good all-around tool is Google or YouTube. If you decide to make a visit up here, it's always recommended that you do your research. Know what you're doing before you go. Have all your tickets and everything ready to be processed before you get to the terminal. I'll talk more about that in the second video, second or third video on fares. Anyway, we'll get started today with the tools. Probably the most important tool you can get is called the WSDOT app. I will post in a photograph of what the app looks like, along with a couple photographs on the different sections of it and what to use it for. Like I said, the WSDOT app has the most up-to-date information. A lot of it's real-time information as far as vessel watch. It's got schedules to all the routes, and they're generally a little more up-to-date than the ferry system website, or at least it's been my experience in the past that WSDOT app generally has the changes in schedules updated quicker than they do downtown. Most of the main office has been working remotely, so it takes a little longer for things to get done down there. that being the case. It's got the WSDOT app, has got the schedules to all the routes that we sail to. It also has Vessel Watch, which is real-time monitoring of the vessels that WSF, Washington State Ferries, operates. So, make sure whenever you're using the WSDOT app, it's important that you back out of, say, Vessel Watch or the schedules to the main screen, and then go back in. That refreshes the information that's on the screen, especially in Vessel Watch. I'm not so sure about the schedule page. I've heard rumors that if you look at the schedule page and then just shut your phone off and come in the following day and bring up the same page, the information could be different. Like I said, the schedules change all the time up here. I'll go into that more in another video, the reasons that the schedules change. It can be staffing, it can be COVID, it can be mechanical troubles, all sorts of things can change a schedule to where it eliminates a one-boat service. And when that happens, all the vessels that have reservations on that sailing, all the vehicles that have reservations on that sailing get bumped over to another sailing, and that kind of snowballs throughout the day. So that can make for a miserable day even if you have reservations. So anyway, back to this. WSDOT app, make sure you back out to the main screen and go back in to get updated information. The app also has highway and mountain pass information in the state of Washington, as well as traffic cameras. It's got cameras on the mountain passes, cameras at the main highways, freeways here in Washington, and it even has cameras at the ferry terminals. So you're able to view the holding lots generally, how many cars are waiting, and sometimes the cameras will be pointed at the vessels where they load and unload. All the schedules up here are seasonal. They change about every 3 or 4 months due to the amount of tourism we experience in the summer and the lack of it in the winter. On the schedules, on the corporate or company printed schedules, it'll generally have westbound sailings on one side and eastbound sailings on the other. Westbound is going out to the islands. Eastbound is coming back to Anacortes. On these schedules, you'll see blue shaded routes. Now, those blue shaded routes are inter-island traffic only. They go between the islands that are out there, Friday Harbor, San Juan Island, to Lopez, to Orcas, to Shaw, for locals to get back and forth, and tourists if they just want to visit the other islands while they're out there. I'll go more into that in a later video as well, as far as the costs and what's available on each of the islands if you choose to do that. There's a charge for vehicles going on the inter-island ferry, but there's no charge for walk-on passengers doing the inter-island routes. When you look at these schedules, you need to pay close attention to the little symbols next to some of the destinations on a route. There are symbols that say that on a certain route, they're only taking walk-on passengers and no vehicles. So if you show up to a sailing that goes to your destination and you didn't notice the little symbol next to the destination, you could be stuck waiting for a later sailing. There's also symbols that say that they offer priority loading for 3 of the 4 islands. because the following vessel, about an hour later, is designated just for that one island that wasn't included in the previous sailings. So that's an entire vessel devoted to just going to that one island. Generally, the vessels hold between 100 and 135 vehicle spaces. Now, these are 22-foot vehicle spaces. So if a vehicle's longer than 22 feet, it takes up 2 of those spaces. So keep that in mind. That'll be covered later, too, in fares. There, like I said, multi-destination loading availability, and that means that if you show up to a sailing late and the sailing is going to 3 islands and they load the first island of vehicles on the boat first because they're stopping there first and they'll unload there first, then they pack another destination in behind those vehicles and another destination in behind those vehicles. If you show up late and your destination is the first set of vehicles to get loaded, there's not room to get you on past the other destinations that have already been loaded on the boat behind them. So keep that in mind. I covered that there's a multi-destination priority. Like I said, sometimes they will prioritize 3 stops on one vessel that's supposed to have 4 stops. That means they only let a limited amount of vehicles for the 4th stop on the boat, and then they cut that off and fill the boat with the other destinations because their sailing times are later and farther away than the one for the 4th island that they've limited vehicle traffic to. The one with the 4th island vehicle traffic will sail within an hour on another vessel that's dedicated entirely to that destination. So they will prioritize and try and keep people's schedules as close to on time as possible in those instances. And that comes up more so in the busier months. It's the middle of February right now, and it's already extremely busy. I think with the effects of COVID, having people cooped up for 2 years, that there's a lot of people sailing this time of year that generally wouldn't. They would have come in the summer. I also wouldn't deny the fact that some people that are working remotely can work remotely from anywhere that has Wi-Fi. So if you're able to take your work with you on a vacation to the islands, that might be what you're doing. In the summer, I expect it to be worse. I just kind of heard a rumor yesterday that they're going to extend the winter season schedules for another couple weeks due to staffing issues. And I kind of get the hint that they may not be opening ferry service to Sydney, British Columbia this summer. Or perhaps later than usual. So that's just kind of a rumor I've heard. Anyway, we'll go ahead and move on to number 2, which is reservations, vehicle reservations. You don't need a reservation to walk on the ferry. However, in the summertime, there are limits of walk-on passengers. Generally, this last summer, it was about 350. We have to count the walk-on passengers with the amount of passengers that are in vehicles to, number 1, meet Coast Guard requirements of so many passengers per crew member. In case of an emergency, the crew members is only allowed to handle a certain amount of people. With COVID, that has reduced greatly. With crewing numbers reducing, it's also reduced the amount of passengers that are allowed to ride on the vessels. That may increase if COVID relaxes. So vehicle reservations. One of the tools for vehicle reservations is dialing 511 on your cell phone. That'll connect you with the reservation department, as well as some other information pertaining to Washington State Department of Transportation. Generally, if you get emailed a reservation confirmation, It'll send a barcode or a QR code to you in the email. Those are handy to have pulled up when you pull up to the auto ticket booth to show the attendant. They just scan that barcode and it brings up your reservation on their screen. Makes it easier than going to the sailing and then the destination of that sailing and looking up a last name. It takes a little more time that way. But keep in mind that cellular service is really low at the Anacortes Ferry Terminal. Once you get inside the terminal or on the overhead walkway that's covered, your cell signal is very weak, and I come across a lot of people that wait until the last second to pull up those barcodes even for their walk-on tickets. If you purchase tickets online, they'll send you an email with a barcode attachment to the email. Generally, in the email, you'll see a little section about about 2/3 into the email that'll be blue underlined text, and it says view or print PDF version of your ticket. If you click on that, it'll bring up the barcode, and that barcode is what will scan, or the QR code, when you walk on the ferry if you pre-purchase your tickets online. There's multi types of walk-on tickets available, and I'll cover that more in another video, as well as discounts, age limits for what types of tickets you buy. Anyway, whether it be a vehicle reservation or a walk-on ticket, have that barcode pulled up before you get to the terminal and on a separate page so that it can be scanned. You can bring it up instantly. It can be scanned. There are multi-ride passes that you can purchase if you're planning on visiting frequently, and those I've seen those shared by people. They expire 90 days after purchase. There are 5-ride for a vehicle and a 10-ride ticket for walk-on passengers. People will take a picture of the ticket and send it to a friend, and they can use it between themselves. It's important. I'll go into more of that later on in another video in fares and tickets. But it's important, if you take a picture of one of these tickets, to send to someone, that right before you take the picture, you tap on the barcode on the screen on your phone, so it focuses on that barcode directly instead of the rest of the ticket. If it doesn't focus on that barcode directly and bring that up clearly, it's impossible to scan, and we get stuck entering in a 15 or 16 or 18 digit number that's below the barcode, and that really slows you down. That's the last thing you want when you pull in to get on a boat, is anything that's going to slow that process down. Reservations, when you make them in a vehicle, you need to make the reservation for the proper vehicle length. Have your vehicle measured from bumper to bumper, or if you've got a bicycle rack on the back or any kind of a cargo rack, it's going to include that as well. So if you're over 22 feet, you need to make a reservation for a longer vehicle. If you're over a height of 7 foot 2 inches, you don't have to, well, you can make it's important to make a reservation for a tall vehicle. They have that option in there. Taller vehicles are loaded in the center of the vessel. Vehicles under 7 foot 2 can go into tunnels along the sides of the vessel. They have 2 tunnels, one on top of each other, and they send the under 7 foot 2 vehicles down those tunnels. So the tall vehicles have to be loaded in the center. Make sure you make your reservation for the proper vehicle length and destination. Like I said, there's multi-destinations, so make sure that you have the reservation to that. In order to maintain your reservation, for your reservation to be valid, you have to show up prior to 30 minutes before sailing time. 31 minutes before sailing time, because at 30 minutes before sailing time, they cut off reservations for that sailing. And everybody goes on a first come, first serve standby basis at that point. So show up prior to 30 minutes before sailing and you'll retain your reservation. Like I said, be prepared if they have a vessel breakdown. These reservations from previous sailings can snowball and affect your ability to get on even with a reservation. We have no control over that. These things are machines and they break down. There's people that get sick, and people tend to want to blame Washington State ferries when they have a crewing shortage. But it's actually a Coast Guard regulation that states that in order for this vessel to sail, you have to have this many crew members of these different ranks on board the vessel. And if you don't have that exact number of crew members, the boat will not sail. So it's for your safety and Coast Guard regulations that a lot of times these sailings are canceled because of shortage of crew, especially now during COVID. When you make your reservation, they charge you $8 or $9 to make the reservation on a debit card. That charge only gets charged to you if you don't show up for the reservation. If you make the reservation and don't show up for it. If you show up for the reservation, you're never charged that fee. Some people pull up to the ticket booth expecting that to be the fare for their vehicle and their passengers to go to the islands, and it's not. So I have to explain that quite a bit. Some of the vehicle fees go from $50 to $60 round trip with just car and driver. So if you buy a vehicle ticket, that includes the driver. Any additional passengers are about $15 a piece round trip. There are discounts: senior citizen, disabled discounts, youth discounts. I'll go into more of these later in the next video. So anyway, the no-show fee is $8 or $9, and that's only charged to you if you don't show up for your reservation. So they won't deduct that out of your account if you show up in time for your reservation. Each vessel, most times, has facilities for the disabled and elderly. They have elevators on the vessels, and they have a car deck restroom, so you don't have to go up to the passenger deck from the auto deck to use the restroom if it's difficult for you. Like I said, most of the time these are available, but they are also machines and they do break down. Elevators can have problems, car deck restrooms can have plumbing problems. So I think the length of time between Anacortes and the islands varies on how many destinations they stop at, because they'll stop at up to 3 destinations before they reach Friday Harbor on San Juan Island, and they have to unload vehicles and load vehicles at these destinations. Depending on how many of those are, it can be up to an hour and a half, 2 hours for you to reach your destination. So when you arrive at the terminal, there are restrooms in the vehicle holding lot to the west. There's also a cafe open in the terminal. Currently, COVID affects this, but the cafe in the terminal has been open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. this time of year. I imagine when summer comes, they'll be open more. Most of the galleys on the ferries are not currently open. None of the galleys on the ferries are currently open. Let me rephrase that. They do have vending machines in the terminal. They have just recently opened a little souvenir shop in the terminal, and they have vending machines on the vessels themselves. So the cafe serves soups, sandwiches, coffees, lattes, beer and wine that must be consumed in the little area that they have set aside for drinking. Do not show up drunk. I work the lot as well as sell tickets, and I've almost been run over a couple times by people that were inebriated. it's dangerous for the people in the terminal. It's also dangerous for people on the boats and fellow passengers. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there because it happens. They have loading priorities on each vessel. One of them being law enforcement vehicles. Another priority loading is aid cars or ambulances. They get priority loading. Any staff members that need to get on a boat to go to work, if they're working the inter-island run, they'll get on the ferry there in Anacortes and travel out to one of the islands, park their vehicle, and work the inter-island run, or vice versa. Mortuary vehicles, coroner vehicles, etc., receive priority loading. So those are the some of the loading priorities. There's also people with medical forms filled out by their physician and submitted to the Washington State Ferries for approval. Physicians will sometimes fill these forms out if a patient has to be at an appointment at a certain time, or if their procedure has been so rough that they determine they need to get home at a certain time and that they can't sit in a vehicle and wait for multiple ferries in order to get home. So these medical forms get filled out by the physician and the patient and submitted to the ferries for approval. If you happen to have one of these medical forms filled out for the dates that are pertinent, you'll show these medical forms to the second shack that you go to. The first shack you go to when you pull up will be the auto ticket booth, if you're in a vehicle. All this is if you're in a vehicle. The second shack you pull to after you purchase your tickets will assign you what lane they want you in, and that's the shack that you will show your medical form to, request an elevator or car deck restroom. If you need to get a wheelchair out of your vehicle, you can request wide door access to get that accomplished. But those are some of the loading priorities. Number 3 here is some good tools. And basically, any search engine you want to use, it's important before you head to the islands to do your research. Do some searches on Google. Any information that you pull up, make sure and verify it, that it's up to date and in effect for the time that you're going to be there. I did a Google search on San Juans and came up with a website called visitsanjuans.com. SANJUANS.com. If you want to do some searches particular to the islands that you may be going to, you can do a Google search or any search engine search that you choose. Try searching for San Juan Island, Shaw Island, Orcas Island, or Lopez Island, and that'll bring up loads of information on the destination that you're going to for activities and lodging and dining. You can also get a lot of information from right here from YouTube. There's a lot of videos out there of what to do on the San Juan Islands. There's boating videos showing the places to anchor, and there's way more islands than just these 4 in the San Juan Islands. Many of them are uninhabited. Many of them are state parks, only accessible by boat. So it's a beautiful place. You can go to an island and have a cove all to yourself for the whole evening, and it feels like you're the only person on the face of the earth if you have a boat. So I hope to do some more boat trips this summer. Like I said, work sometimes tells me when I can have time off and when I can't. And being lower seniority, I generally don't get the best times off of the year. But that improves the longer I'm there. So hopefully I'll have some videos coming out this summer, and I'll take you to some of the islands and show you around up there. But basically that's it for this video on tools. If you have any questions about anything that's been covered on this video, just go ahead and leave it in the comments. I'll read the comments and respond back to you. I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate your support. If you find anything in this video that was helpful information, I'd appreciate it if you'd give a thumbs up. It doesn't cost anything to give a thumbs up. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe. When you subscribe, it will notify you, and you have to hit the little bell icon next to the subscribe button. It will notify you when the next video comes out, and you'll be able to watch that. So that's pretty much it for now. Thanks for watching.